And friends, our second scripture lesson is from Genesis chapter 28, beginning at verse 10. We're picking up on the story of Jacob. Jacob is on the run at this point in Genesis. He has swindled or tricked his older brother Esau out of his birthright. He has deceived his blind father Isaac. And so Jacob is now on the run. And we'll unpack more of his story later on. Well, picking up at verse 10, Jacob left Beersheba and went toward Haran. He came to a certain place and stayed there for the night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place. And he dreamed there was a ladder set up on the earth, the top of it reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And the Lord stood beside him and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and to your offspring. And your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth. And you shall spread abroad to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south, and all the families of the earth shall be blessed. In you and in your offspring. Know that I am with you and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Then Jacob woke from his sleep and said, Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid and said, How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. So Jacob rose early in the morning, and he took the stone that he had put under his head and set it up for a pillar and poured oil on the top of it. He called that place Bethel. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. In recent decades, part of the ongoing culture war debates is the discussion or the debate about the role of the Bible in our society, or the role of the Bible in the public square. And every so often people will lament the lack of children in schools not knowing the Bible. And so there's the belief that we need to get the Bible taught in public schools. Get the Bible back into schools, and children can read about some of the people in the Bible and know morals and right from wrong. If they read the stories in the Bible, they will be filled with morality. They'll be given examples to follow. Clearly, some of these people have never read the book of Genesis. Because from the opening chapters, you've got family dysfunction that goes from bad to worse. Starting with Adam and Eve, and then Noah and his family, and then Abraham and Isaac, and then you get to Jacob. In the Bible, families look less like the people who comprise some of the classic wholesome TV shows of the past, Father's Knows Best or Leave It to Beaver. In the Bible, people look more like the contestants on Big Brother and Love Island. As a new grandparent, I look forward to reading some of the classic children's stories that maybe we read to our kids. In addition to Goodnight Moon and Green Eggs and Ham and The Very Hungry Caterpillar, many parents also include another classic story to read to their kids called Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. Anybody ever heard of this one? Yeah, read that one? It begins with a little boy named Alexander who wakes up one morning to discover gum in his hair. And this is just the beginning of a series of very unfortunate events, which is another separate story. We see Alexander navigate the challenges and the setbacks of his day, like not getting the window seat in the car ride, or discovering that his best friend at school has replaced him with two other friends, Or finding out that his mother forgot to put a dessert in his lunch bag. As if things couldn't get worse, Alexander goes from the school and to the dentist's office and is told that he has a cavity. There are other more calamities that befall Alexander that cause him so much frustration that he decides the only thing he can do is to move to Australia. A natural reaction to children, I guess. In our passage from Genesis, we find Jacob, the man who would become known as one of the great patriarchs of Israel. Jacob's name will be tied to God's identity and how God reveals himself. In the book of Exodus, in the burning bush, remember, God reveals his name to Moses as, I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And in Genesis 28, we discover that, like Alexander, Jacob is having a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. But unlike Alexander, Jacob's misfortune are all his own doing. So far, he has stolen his older brother Esau's birthright, and with the help of his mother, he has deceived his blind father Isaac into bestowing the family blessing upon him, a blessing that was reserved only for the older brother. And his brother Esau finds out about his little brother's shenanigans, and he vows to hunt him down. So here we find Jacob on the run, running away, trying to live off of a stolen blessing. And the text tells us that he stops at a certain place, a vague, generic description, an empty field, the Motel 6 found just off of any interstate exit. A certain place can be anywhere, and wherever it is also nowhere. Jacob stops for the night and gets ready for bed using a stone for a pillow. And during the night he has a dream, and in the dream God speaks to him. God shows up and stands beside him and says, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. The land in which you lie I will give to you and to your offspring. Know that I am with you and will keep you wherever you go. Now here's something to note. In the Old Testament, God gets a really bad rap. Somewhat understandably, sure, there are some pretty troubling passages in which God appears to command some questionable, even horrific things, which has led some to say, well, that's the God of the Old Testament, but the God of the New Testament is different. And so they conclude that the God of the New Testament, the God revealed in Jesus, well, it's the same God in the Old Testament, but this God has gone through some anger management classes. We miss the point that in the Old Testament there are moments where God reveals himself through sheer grace. Notice his message to Jacob. God did not read Jacob the riot act or hammer him with all the things that Jacob had done wrong in his life. God did not remind Jacob about his deception, the lying, the conniving, the stealing. God never mentions any of Jacob's faults. Not one mention of any wrongdoing, not one mention of any conditions or laying out of any expectations for how Jacob could make amends. God did not come to Jacob with a list of failures. God came to Jacob with a list of promises. God doesn't give Jacob a stern lecture. He gives him a vision of hope. God offers the promise of land and descendants. And what's more shocking, God promises Jacob to be with him always. He promises him his presence. Wherever you go, I will be with you. Is that a promise? Or is that a threat? God offers the promise of his presence to a cheat and a scoundrel who did not deserve anything. And I'm just thinking, just wondering, how many people are here this morning, and maybe you find yourself in that certain place, that nameless place, that space between the past that was and the uncertain or the unknown future that could be. I'm wondering maybe how many people you know in your life, how many people in this community find themselves weighed down by a life of bad choices and rest their head on a stone of regret. When people find themselves in a certain place, in an empty field, nowhere, they don't need a lecture. They don't need to be reminded of their past and all the mistakes they made. They need grace. They need a new story. And Jacob gets a new story in a dream. He hears the voice, and he hears the promise. And he sees this vision of a ladder going from earth up into heaven. This image is popularly known as Jacob's ladder. It's an image that has been captured in paintings and in a classic spiritual hymn and even a somewhat obscure 80s song by Huey Lewis and the News. Interesting that Hebrew word that we translate as ladder is best translated as a stairway. And it's an image that goes back to Genesis 11, where we were told, remember the story of Babel, people gathered together in one place to build a tower of stairs to the heavens in order that they may make their name great. Some scholars tell us that this could also be a reference to the ziggurats that the Babylonians would build in some of the great cities in their empire. Only the powerful, only the empire could build a stairway to heaven, with apologies to Led Zeppelin. A lot of musical references. I'm sorry, the text just opens itself up to that. One set of stairs was built in great cities by humans to reach into the heavens, to reach the gods, to make a name great for ourselves. But in Genesis 28, there's another set of stairs. A different stairway appears, not in a great city, not made by the empire. This stairway lands in the middle of a certain place, an empty field in the middle of nowhere. Babylon said that only the powerful could build a stairway into the stars, into the heavens. But Jacob's ladder arrives for a conniving cheat on the run from his past. In other words, the empire does not control access to God. The gate of heaven is wherever God shows up. And God shows up in this text in the dry dirt of an empty field, in an out-of-the-way place, a certain place. I think it's also interesting to note that Jacob is running away, but he's not searching for God. Jacob was not out looking for God. He was looking for a way out. Jacob is looking for an escape route. And yet, God searches and finds Jacob. God shows up to him and for him. Every empire builds statues, builds monuments to show that they have control, they have access to the gods with them, and that the gods are on their side. They, the empire, are the center of power. But Jacob's God, the living God, places himself next to fugitives and outcasts trying to outrun their past, trying to outrun and outlive their bad choices. God shows up and finds those people, those persons who aren't even looking for God. And when he wakes up, Jacob realizes what has transpired, and he utters those remarkable words, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not even know it." I like how author and preacher Barbara Brown Taylor puts it when she writes about this moment. She writes, having woken up to God, Jacob would never be able to go to sleep again, at least not to the divine presence that had promised to be with him, whether he could see it or not. Jacob is changed, transformed by this encounter, this dream, this experience. And he marks the occasion by taking the stone that he had used as a pillow, this hard thing that he had placed his head upon, and he made this stone into an altar, a monument, a reminder. He takes this hard, painful, uncomfortable object and he declares it to be holy. And he names the place, this empty field, this dry, hard ground, Bethel, literally the house of God. A reminder that God was here, even in this place, and he did not even know it. God shows up to people who least expect it, and in places that don't look very holy, but become holy simply because God was there. Notice this also. After the dream, after this encounter, after this realization that he has been in the presence of God and did not know it, Jacob's circumstances have not changed one bit. He is still on the run. He is still living on his brother's stolen blessing. He is still uncertain about his future. His redemption will not come for several years. He's got to get into some strange arrangements with his uncle Laban. But he is changed because God has shown up. He has learned that despite his past, despite all of his scheming and conniving and deception, he has learned that by the grace of God, he too is somehow part of the promises that God made to Abraham and to Isaac, and now to him. And he has learned that anywhere that God shows up becomes the gate of heaven. Notice that God, at least at first, God does not take us out of the hard places. First, God shows up to us and for us in the hard places. God is not somewhere else in a better zip code over there on the other side of the fence in the greener pasture waiting for us to just figure life out, figure out how to get our stuff together, where we went wrong, straighten up, and then go and find him. No, God just shows up to us in the middle of our mess. God shows up to us first in our hard places. And when God shows up, God does not come with a list or a lecture. He doesn't name the places we failed. He just simply shows up and offers us promises and a new story, and offers us the promise of his abiding presence. Wherever you go, I will be with you. Again, is that a promise or is that a threat? Friends, hear this good news. The place you are right now, maybe it's the empty place, the hard space, the dark place, the out-of-the-way place, the dry, hard ground. The place you are right now and the hard stone under your head is the place where God is already present. It is the place that is already being made into holy ground. You just don't know it yet. But you will. Thanks be to God. Amen.